Raptors survive in Sacramento. Scottie Barnes breaks the zone. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting knees right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form.
Exactly.
Is the editing.
All right, folks, the scout is out against the Toronto Raptors. They see the fourth most frequent zone defense in the NBA. They are also bad at scoring against the zone. They are 28th in efficiency at scoring against zone defenses. The NBA now knows this, and the Sacramento Kings, for the majority of this game, ran zone to muck up the Raptors' offense. They struggled at first, and then in the third quarter, Scottie Barnes helped them score 42 points and miss just 5 shots, completely breaking the Kings' zone. Let's talk about it today. All right, so the Raptors are seeing a 2-3 zone here where, they'll have 2 guards here, or 2-1-2 zone, if you will. And that makes it a little bit harder for offenses to get into the teeth of the defense here and make plays. And so as you see here, they're trying to work to get Scottie Barnes in the teeth, in the middle of the zone as the zone buster, but they struggle to do so. And it's a good job by Dennis Schroeder of making it harder to get these passes. They're making the space around him a lot tighter. And so the Raptors have to resort to something else. Grady Dick tries to create his own shot and misses. And look, because every defense knows the soft spot of a zone is in the middle of the floor, most offenses use a lot of their shot clock trying to get into that zone area, or the zone breaking area, middle of the floor. And so they do this time, and they actually generate a good possession. As you see here, Grady Dick cuts automatically, and he finds him there. And if we go back, right, as we see the entry pass to, I believe it's Scottie Barnes. So watch as Scottie flashes middle here, right? And as soon as he's flashing middle, Grady Dick is going to time this cut and cut backdoor. And now Dennis Schroeder and DeMar DeRozan have to communicate on the backside to talk here, and they miscommunicate this. Boom. Scottie finds Grady for the finish. Now, in the third quarter, the Raptors were much more efficient at scoring against the zone, and I think part of that was just finding Scottie more frequently in the middle. As you see here, they're also running Mamu on the baseline to engage this middle player. Now this middle guy can't come up and defend the zone area, so if there's a Mamu here, who, 1, can be a shooter on the weak side, 2, can roam this dunker spot area. And I'm sorry I'm scribbling so much for the YouTube viewers, but I'm just trying to describe exactly how you break a zone. It's high school defense, as they say. But look, so Emmanuel quickly flashes middle, and now Precious Achiuwa is forced to step up. They don't want IQ to be that zone breaker, though. He's too small. Scottie Barnes is a much better zone breaker. So this is exactly what they do. Scottie gets into the middle of the floor, and boom. As soon as Scottie gets into the middle, there are so many options, right? IQ, Mamu. You just got to be able to hit your shots. And recently, up until that Warriors game, the Raptors have not been able to hit their shots, but they did in that third quarter. Screen and then flash middle. And now that creates a lot of playmaking opportunities for Scottie, as you see Ochai Agbaji cutting backdoor. Let's say Russell Westbrook helps in, and there's Mamu here on this corner. There's just a lot of playmaking opportunities, but there's also scoring opportunities for Scottie Barnes. And that's another aspect where I think Scottie needs to put more pressure on defenses, is when he gets into the middle of the floor like this, is to score. And recently, Scottie has been an excellent scorer. He's averaging 24 points over his last 7 games. So right here, doesn't see any playmaking options, so he just takes it one-on-one, attacks DeMar, finishes at the basket. This time, instead of even getting into the middle of the floor, just goes one-on-one against Reynaud. I would like to see the Raptors involve Brandon Ingram a little bit more in the middle of the zone, just so they have another guy who can do it. I think he's capable at breaking the zone, much like Scottie Barnes is. So here, he flashes middle. And again, Brandon is so good in the mid-range area of the floor. Defenses don't want to leave him open in this area. So he can really put pressure on defenses, and he draws a foul here. And so, folks, the Raptors scored 42 points in that third quarter. They completely flipped the game. Scottie Barnes had 14 of what I believe was at the end of it. Let's take a look. 23 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists on 17 shots. He had 14 of those points in that third quarter that helped completely flip the game for the Raptors. Folks, the scout is out against the Raptors when it comes to that zone defense. Seems like everybody is going to throw out a zone. I guarantee you the Portland Trailblazers will throw out a zone. And it's funny because the Trailblazers also see a lot of zone defense. It is the Pistons, the Thunder, the Blazers, and the Raptors that see the most zone in the NBA. Unfortunately, the Raptors don't score that frequently out of zone. And part of that is the three-point shooting. You know, as I detailed in the last video, they are, over the last 12 games, outside of the Warriors game where they shot 61% from three, they were below 30% in terms of three-point percentage. And you got to be able to hit your shots from three. A lot of the possessions, as I was going through them, especially in the second quarter, it was, you know, they got a good quality look against the zone. They just didn't hit their shots. And in the second quarter, or in the third quarter, they found a way to, one, establish Scottie Barnes more as a scorer. And if the shots weren't falling, the shots weren't falling. I'm going to talk about Mamu and Shed in a second as well, because I thought they were instrumental to helping break that zone in the third and fourth quarter. But overall, the recipe, the answer for the Raptors when it comes to figuring out and solving their zone defense, it comes down to Scottie Barnes. He is the answer. He is, truthfully, he is one of the best guys to put against the zone in the NBA, especially in the middle of the floor as a playmaker, as a guy who can attack the basket. Now, why have the Raptors not been successful despite having a player that's that talented against the zone? One, I think it has to do, again, with the shooting and not being able to knock down your shots. And two, teams disguise zones now more frequently, so they'll go from man to zone, or they'll go from zone to man, and they could do it even in between a possession, right? So sometimes there's kind of trickery going on here in terms of what kind of defensive schemes that teams are seeing. So teams are doing a decent job of disguising their zones as well, but it's kind of become commonplace for the Raptors to expect a zone. And I saw a couple of comments on Twitter tonight saying, why don't they practice against the zone? Why don't they figure this out? Why is this taking so long to figure out? NBA teams don't practice, y'all. Like, they actually, every single time Darko Rajakovic gets asked a question about practice, or, hey, what is this guy doing in practice? He gives a funny answer like, practice? They don't get time to practice. Between travel and shoot-arounds, and this is not exclusive to the Raptors, NBA teams don't get a lot of time to practice. I believe when was the last game I went to? I went to a Sixers game. This was before they went on their road trip. The two Sixers games that they had, Kyle's last game. And I believe Darko got asked, like, hey, what's happening in practice here with you guys? And he's like, man, we haven't practiced since that long NBA Cup break that they had, because they just haven't had the time to practice. So I will say that is something that's necessary to point out. Of course, there's film study. Of course, there's shoot around where they talk about what they're expecting in games, and they are highly prepared. They are professional athletes and professional organizations. But in terms of actual time to practice, it's limited during a regular season. And that does not apply just to the Toronto Raptors. It applies to all 30 teams. If you ask every NBA coach in the NBA, if you ask every coach in the NBA, they would request more practice time. That is just the truth of the matter. And so that's why I think, in part, the Raptors kind of need to learn on the fly when it comes to breaking the zone. And that's why they were much better in the second half, because you can go back and look at your film at halftime and say, okay, hey, what are they doing here? And how can we figure this out? And I think the Raptors, again, did a much better job of disguising some screening actions for Scottie, where of course you can screen against a zone, but they would disguise it as if Scottie was setting a screen, and then he would slip that screen into the middle of the zone. They would find him in that area, and from there he could score, pass, or play make. And that's the MO when it comes to breaking the zone. I believe they'll end up getting better than 28th in terms of efficiency against the zone. That's just something that they have to solve. Ultimately, it's just something that they're going to see a lot because they don't have a ton of shooting talent. And it's funny because, you look up and down this roster and you say, well, they should have better shooting talent, Um, Again, we'll talk about Mamu in a second. IQ is obviously coming off of a very, very impressive game. Not as crazy. It was a good game for IQ tonight. It wasn't 40 points type of IQ. 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists. He knocked down 1 3. But you look up and down this roster, and there's so many shooting guards, right? There's Ochai Agbaji, there's Jamison Battle, there's Grady Dick, and Grady finished with 11 points tonight, but he was only 1 of 5 from 3, or 1 of 6 from 3. Ochai Agbaji didn't even take a 3 tonight. And Jamison Battle, I believe, knocked down 1 of his 2 threes tonight. Yeah, he was 1 of 2. AJ Lawson, another guy who's a shooter who didn't take a 3 at all in this game, even though he didn't play that much anyways. Regardless, the Raptors have a lot of shooting guards. They don't have a lot of shooting. And so that's why there's so much pressure on Emmanuel Quickley to be an elite shooter. And when Jamal Shed is on the floor, he has to be an elite shooter. And when Mamu is on the floor, he has to be an elite shooter. And if you look at Mamu and Jamal Shed tonight, they shot the ball incredibly well. Mamu was 3 of 8 from 3. Shed was 3 of 5 from 3. They did a good job of knocking down their shots. And that's why you see, if you look up and down the box score, those guys and their impact was clear. They made their shots. And of course, they impacted the game in different ways. Let's talk about Mamu, though, because I think he's had a really, really impressive start to this road trip. I talked about it on Twitter, but he has now 56 points through 3 games, and he's knocked down 9 of his 17 threes. He's basically shooting almost 50% from 3, or actually, yeah, about 50% from 3. He is really, really good at scoring. He's obviously got a couple of starts here, or tonight he got the start in place of Colin Murray-Boyles. And he's taken the extra opportunity and really thrived. And they've needed this offense from him because no RJ Barrett again tonight, no Colin Murray-Boyles tonight, no Jakob Poeltl, of course, who is back in Toronto and seeing a specialist, according to Michael Grange, and no Jacoby Walter. Per reports, it seems like RJ and Jacoby Walter are expected to play at some point during this road trip. Whether that's Friday versus Portland or Sunday versus OKC, we'll see. But it seems like those guys are close. But Mamu has taken this opportunity and ran with it. Let's talk about some of the plays that he impacted tonight. So one of the great things about Mamu is he can put the ball on the floor and make decisions himself. Here, he creates his own shot in pseudo transition. This time, Brandon Ingram post up and watch as he is going to creep to this corner here. Mobo is here to set the hammer screen, if you will, just so he can flare out. That's exactly what happens. Mamu knocks down the corner. He's a true triple threat. So here, off of the closeout, of course, he's a very good shooter, so he can shoot this ball, or he can attack this closeout and make a play, whether it's a dump-off pass to Scottie Barnes or finishing it himself. That's why he's a true triple threat type of player. So boom, attacks this closeout. Great job finishing in the lane. Again, 5-out spacing has been really important for the Raptors when Mamu is on the floor. Just another guy who can knock down these threes consistently, and that's a great sign for him. Again, this is why he's such a true triple threat. So pick and roll happens, and he's creeping on the weak side, right? So Nick Clifford has to tag this roller, which is Jonathan Mobo, and that's exactly what happens. So he shakes up. Now Nick Clifford has to rotate out. He can make a decision. He can shoot this shot, or he can attack the basket and then draw the defense, finds Shed for the 3. And so, yeah, Mamu and Shed were both really great in this game. Mamu particularly was awesome. He finished with 22 points and 9 rebounds, along with 4 assists. Again, I think his offensive punch has been massive for this team, especially as they miss RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl. Overall, you're getting some extended looks for some of these tertiary guys, especially a Jonathan Mobo. Mobo in this game, for some reason, there he is. So Mobo had 9 rebounds in this game. He only had 3 points. He was 1 of 5 from the field. And I will say, Mobo has had a really, really great season for the 905. He's had some incredible games, some great defensive moments, and his offense has looked better at the G League level. Unfortunately, that hasn't translated yet to the NBA. I think the difference in physicality and size in the NBA is making it a little bit harder for him to finish at the basket. You're seeing that his touch is still not fully there. And, he's not this crazy vertical athlete where he can run and jump and dunk on everybody. That was something he did incredibly well in college. Again, that hasn't translated at the NBA level yet. Still a very below the rim type of player. And so you need a level of craft as a finisher to be able to thrive when you're not that type of athlete. And I haven't seen that from him yet. The touch just needs to improve, right? Like that's something that has to happen for him to remain an NBA player and for him to like have a long career. The touch just has to get better. That being said, he will get opportunity here because it seems like Colin Murray-Boyles will be out for a little bit. Of course, the trade deadline is in 7 games, so maybe the Raptors end up trading for a backup big at some point. With Jakob Poeltl seeing a specialist, I am not too optimistic about him coming back anytime soon. So I believe the Raptors will make a trade for a big man. Who that big man is, what caliber that big man is mostly kind of dependent on what kind of deals they can conjure up. But I would be surprised if we see Jakob Poeltl before the All-Star break. There's no reporting behind that. But like, given the fact that he's missed 17 of their last 18 games, and he's going to see a specialist, tells me that it's pretty unlikely that he's going to come back before the All-Star break. And the Raptors have to have, plan B, C, D, E, F, G. You know what I mean? They got to figure out what they want to do on that end as well. But the Raptors took care of business tonight. It was a shaky start where the zone defense really threw a wrench in things. They were slow out the gate. This was very different compared to the Golden State Warriors game where they were on fire and shot 60% from 3. They were not like that tonight. Whatever. It's all good. Some nights you don't have it like that. And I think the thing to look forward to here is closing out this West Coast road trip strong, closing out this month strong, as I've mentioned, moment of truth type of like situation here for the Raptors. They are now all tied for 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They're each, the Knicks are 26-18, the Raptors are 27-19. Of course, the Knicks have the tiebreaker currently over the Knicks because the Knicks have the tiebreaker over the Raptors just because they've beat the Raptors pretty handedly. And, you're in a little playoff race here. You got to take care of business even despite the injuries. Name of the game in the NBA season. We'll see what happens here. Okay. Portland on Friday, OKC on Sunday. We will see you guys for those ones as well. Again, like, comment, subscribe, do those things that you guys usually do. It is late here, folks. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. These West Coast road trip games are kicking my butt, but we prevail. The Raptors have prevailed. See you guys later. Peace out.